every injury you have, we'd probably have like a list of 30 things.
No.
You've been okay.
So I'm on the other side. There's very few of us, when I say of us, the pro Highland
Sure.
Game community, there's very few of us that really have had the minimal amount of injuries. Brutal sport, as you know. And yeah, I made it my 8-year pro career and 12 years in the Highland Games without a major injury.
That's amazing.
I had some minor tweaks and pulls and stuff, just like everybody. And at the end of a Highland Games season, you're beat to hell.
Okay.
But never a major injury, and I attribute that to many things.
Right.
And but no, I'm on the other side, so I'm probably the right guy to talk to as far as what to do to stay healthy.
That's good. All right,
Yeah.
so for those who don't know, this is Ryan Stewart. He is, you did Highland Games for, you said 8 years?
8 as a pro, 12 total.
Okay.
And then coach it through that whole time, and that's
You
a
still
full-time
coach it
job
now,
now.
too.
Yeah.
You still coach it now. And he runs, him and his co-owner own Black Flag in Sandy. And that gym is rocking and rolling and continually growing, it seems like. And
Yep.
okay, so within throwers, what would be the biggest injury that you've seen from like across the globe of like everyone you know, everyone you've heard of and seen? Like, what are the injuries that we see in athletes?
Well, when I say throwers, I do mean Highland gamers. I don't mean shot putters, discus throwers, hammer throwers, track and field guys.
Gotcha. Yep.
Really kind of a different category. The heaviest thing they throw is 16 pounds. The heaviest thing we throw is 56.
Right.
But, so yeah, when I say as a thrower, I do mean Highland Games because it is way more brutal than the track and field side of things, just to how we throw it, the weight of the implement, on grass, sloppy weather,
Right.
all that stuff.
Could be.
So as far as the main injuries that I see, a lot of low back stuff from really kind of doing weight over bar and sheaf wrong. That's the main ones I see. You see a lot of knee stuff. Knee stuff for me is, I had some small issues early on in my career, learned how to fix them, good to go after that. But yeah, for the most part, you will see some knee stuff, a lot of knee stuff, low back stuff. You'll see shoulder stuff from time to time. That doesn't get too serious, it seems.
How do we warm up shoulders well, or how do we maintain and keep shoulders healthy for the thrower, especially with like the big heavy implement?
So it's very different in our strength sport versus the others, where everything in strongman and powerlifting is all tight. Highland Games is the opposite. It's loose.
Right.
And that is how you should be throwing the implements and how you should essentially train the shoulders. There's some very specific things that I have a lot of my throwers do, especially if they have the shoulder issues.
Sure.
To where you can see, I'll do, basically I have a thing called a dynamic bell. It's about half full of water, only weighs about 4 pounds, but it looks like a small med ball with a handle.
Sure.
And I'll have them do forward and backward swimming motion. And you can see in the motion as they're coming forward or they're going back, a lot of them, if they have shoulder issues, whether it's tightness or tears or whatever, they'll cut it off. Like instead of it being a nice long
Sure.
loose circle, it'll cut off the top. It'll kind of J over.
Okay.
And that's a pretty good indicator that there's going to be problems. But it's also a great way, whether there's problems or not, to teach them to be long and loose in throwing the hammer, in throwing the weights, in throwing weight over bar. And the more long and loose that you can keep those shoulders and arms, the further the implement's going to go and the safer you're going to be. So yeah, whereas powerlifting, everything's locked in tight.
Right.
Strongman, locked in and tight. We're the opposite. If you're locked in and tight in the Highland Games, your throws will suck and you will get hurt.
Right.
So yeah, it's just, you gotta stay long and loose. It is a necessity.
So as a prevention, like, is there? I mean, you're using that
Mhm.
that ball as a kind of as a warm up,
Yes.
but also as like
Correct.
a little bit of an assessment.
Yeah, and
Looking
I
at
use
just range
it-
of motion.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Range of motion, so it is an assessment, but it also, you'll be incredibly sore, like up in your traps and shoulders after doing it. It is just this measly little 4-pound insignificant ball. But if you're doing it and doing it right, and I start them off slow, but in the end, that warm up, you're speeding it up, faster, and it's all completely safe. But yeah, you're kind of getting that centrifugal force in, and it really is kind of the holy grail as far as health in throwing sports.
Interesting. Okay. I like that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, good stuff. Do a lot of pull-aparts. Just so simple.
Right.
It goes so far. And, just start with really light bands. And, yeah, whether you're doing palms up or palms down, doesn't really matter to me. I work them both. But, yeah, pull-aparts with bands really, really strengthens that area and pumps it full of blood. So, you're constantly healing the area.
Right.
Yeah, that stuff goes a long way also. It really is little tiny things, nothing crazy heavy. Your basic strength training for the sport with your overhead press, which has the big conversion to stones, throwing the stone. Yeah, that's the stuff that's really going to strengthen and put the meat around the shoulder. But it's the little things, the pull aparts, those ball swings, stuff like that keep you healthy.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We've been trying to build up like a little bit of a library of videos of like, hey, these are certain things that we do for shoulders, almost just for as a generalist view, because deep down it's the stuff that people just don't do.
Yes.
It's the stuff that's like you didn't even stretch your shoulder like past 50 degrees, 80 degrees yesterday.
Yes.
Let's push the envelope a little bit and get your shoulder that range of motion.
Yes.
A lot of guys will talk about like your joints have to have this thing called work capacity. Well, work capacity is only so small if my circle is here.
Correct.
If your circle is here, you have more access to range of motion, less likely to injure yourself. Because that
Correct.
weight, since it's so dang heavy on all of them, you put your shoulder in a position it's just not even used to.
Correct.
You're an injury waiting to happen. It may not happen rep
Time.
one, throw one. It's going to happen no matter what. at
That's
point in time.
exactly right.
So building up that capacity, you're telling me it's the small stuff.
It is.
It really is the small stuff, even for like the guys that are in strongman and power. It's the small stuff that's like no one really posts and brags about. And I did banded pull aparts today
No.
before battle,
I know,
but they
right?
should.
I know.
But they should, because it's
They
like
should.
that stuff is like the stuff that saves you from truly coming in and having to get treatment here and then being taught. Okay, it's the small stuff. We're doing small stuff to stabilize, to strengthen, and to like build that capacity.
Yep.
When it comes to, you're telling me, so really overhead, the stone throw, the shot put, whatever, overhead press.
Overhead press is king for
Key.
throwing the stones. But no, when I was throwing, yeah, you had to have a big, strict and overhead press with a barbell in order to really throw the stone far. And
So it sounds like, I mean, which one did you really gravitate to early?
early, I loved the lightweight. It was heavy, but it wasn't heavy enough to really just beat the hell out of you. Really enjoyed weight over bar, even though I wasn't real good at it early on. I was just strong, didn't have the technique part of it down. But really loved the weights in general from beginning to end, beginning of the career to the end of the career. Hammer is one that it built through my entire career. Like it never really ever took a hit. You're not moving. You're staying in one spot.
Right.
And if you can figure out the technique part of it, I saw a guy that I used to throw with, Dave Barron, who's one of the best gamers of all time, and I saw him at like 44 years old throw 115 feet with the heavy hammer, the 22.
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, he's like, I don't have to move. Nothing hurts. I'm like, he's right. Yeah, nothing hurts.
You're like,
You
as
don't
long
have
as
to
you can
move.
figure out your T-spine and
That's it.
hip mobility, you're
That's
good.
it. Yeah.
Stay long and loose. That's
Long and loose.
Yeah.
So your hammer should build through your entire career.
I noticed that for me, like I am so stiff, super stiff. Like
Yeah.
no surprises there. That's more thoracic spine. I'm like, yeah, I can move, and I'm like, I don't move at all. I'm like doing this. I'm like, it's just arms, right? And they're like, you're like, no, it is like
Yeah.
more your more from like knees and hips than anything else.
Correct.
Right? Yep.
Correct. Yeah.
That's a tough one. That's
Yeah.
a tough one. That one doesn't necessarily seem to hurt my shoulders for me.
No, me neither.
And unfortunately, like I use my golfing kind of background of like I can throw it from my hip and still throw it far, and so I
Yes.
feel like I'm kind of like I'm probably building some bad habits up front early with like
Yes.
doing how I would for another sport that has rotation in it. But like it's what I know right now.
But that's
Until
where
this
your power
loose.
is, and I've seen you throw, and you do have a tremendous amount of power off the hip. We were actually talking about that at the gym the other day, and
About me?
yeah, about you.
Nice.
Yeah, because you have a tremendous amount of power throwing off the hip instead of getting long.
Right.
And it's serving you well right now, but
Long term though.
yeah, there's the ceiling, like your ceiling's already there.
Right,
Whereas
right.
if you start fixing it, the ceiling is unlimited. But yeah, with hammer, it really is kind of a different animal, and it's counterintuitive to what you want to do. And so as the ball, the hammer goes up, you drop under, you bend the knees, and everything in your body tells you that when the head of the hammer is dropping to bend the knees, and so everything feels backwards.
Right. What's the biggest thing like mid-season to maintain? Because a lot of people aren't like if you're going from comp to maybe 3 to 4 weeks later another comp or something like that. Mid-season like maintenance and just.
So it really depends on how often you're throwing in competition. We're very lucky in Utah. Whether you are at the amateur level, you can throw right around, I think, 10 times a year, 10 to 12 times a year here, which that's pretty rare for most, especially small states with small population.
Right.
And but we do a great job putting on a massive amount of competitions, and always have. As far as maintenance goes, if you're throwing, we'll say an average of 8 to 10 games a year, which if you're really into the sport, I mean that's what you'll end up seeing on a regular basis. And what you try to do is your off season. I would always start my off season. Again, this is the start of the off season. This isn't the middle. This isn't the end.
Sure.
I kind of needed a hard reset, and I would actually do hill sprints in that first month. Really try to get just a little bit of cardio. Look, Highland Games, the only cardio you need is to be able to run 50 feet with a 100-pound caber and flip it.
Right.
If you can do that, your cardio is good enough for the Highland Games. So, but you try to have that hard reset. You try to get a little bit of volume in, a little hypertrophy early on. But it's not a tremendous amount. I'd usually go about 4 to 6 weeks doing that real hard. Lighten the weights up a bit, let the joints kind of heal up. It's basically getting your uneven body at the end of the season to be balanced and even, because everything we do is right side.
Right.
But I mean, it's very visible how much you're working that right side. At the end of the season, your right arm is big and your left arm is skinny.
Right.
I mean, it is every year. So getting back into a balance, my coach always told me, do not throw. Do not even think about throwing all off season long. Get balanced, get healed up, get even, and there's things that you can do without actually throwing the Highland Games implements in order to make that happen, but still be throws ready come season. Huge in the med ball tosses.
Okay.
Your body doesn't know the difference between a Highland Game implement or a med ball or anything like that. All it knows is that it's throwing.
Sure.
And, doing these med ball tosses against the wall, both sides, always both sides.
Right.
Chest passes, hip passes, both sides. Doing that through your off season, you will hit the ground running come season. And it's your body's like, well, he's throwing. It doesn't matter. It's throwing, is throwing, is throwing, is throwing.
Right.
But the way that it works is you balance everything out during that off season. You do a heavy amount of medicine ball tosses. That's your way of keeping throw ready, balance ready. But it is to get as strong as you can during the off season, and come the season, you're as strong as you can be. And all you're trying to do, you're not trying to get stronger during the season. It's not going to happen. You're going to lose strength.
Right.
But I always said, look, I'm a 700-pound deadlifter in the off season. I don't need to be a 700-pound deadlifter in season. What I need to do is be able to deadlift 600 pounds, but do it fast, like it has rockets on it. That has carryover to the Highland Games. Slow grinding lifts have no carryover at all.
Right. I mean, you're kind of training two different types of muscle fibers at
Yeah.
that point in time. So yeah. So like heel sprints for the
Yeah.
the explosive power.
Explosive
Yeah.
power, but mostly it was just because you need something different and you need to get evened out. It really is just a hard reset button. And 4 to 6 weeks of that at the beginning of your off season is really the way to go. And then kick in your strength training, get as strong as you can, still stay throws ready, still do all the abdominal stuff that you need to do to throw far. But yeah, and then just try to ride out that strength and maintain as much strength as you can, but you don't need to be doing any crazy heavy lifts in the middle of the season. If you have some downtime, sure, throw them in every now and then. They're going to be good for you.
Right.
I guess my thing is a lot of people have a hard time with deadlifts off the floor.
They do.
So
Yeah.
what would you recommend for off the floor?
Well, for me, that's the sweet spot. And anybody that comes in and has that problem, I'm just like a kid in a candy store. So for me, if you're having problems off the floor, there's essentially 3 things. One of them is a little harder in gyms that are not like this, that are specific to strength training. But the other 2 you can do anywhere. Deficit deadlifts every single time. I train conjugate, so I do one of my deadlift sessions, which is the max power output one. I do that from the floor. And then the other one, my speed session, I do from a 2-inch deficit. And I'll have all my people do that no matter what, so that they're never going to have that problem. So deficit deadlifts for one, box squats, low box squats for another. Releasing the hip flexors, fire. Releasing the hip flexors, fire. That has tremendous help from the floor. But the weird one, again, that if you're not in a gym like this, you're going to have a hard time finding, is actually single leg alternating leg press. But I like doing them banded. For me, that is an automatic. If you put X amount of pounds on somebody's, and it's only like 3 sets of 10, 3 sets of 12 as like third movement. But you put strength on that, their power off the floor immediately goes up. But yeah, for some reason, you throw single leg banded alternating leg press in, and their power off the floor goes through the roof.
Love that.
So, yeah.
Sounds like a little bit of a secret you shouldn't have told everyone.
Should not have told. No. Totally okay.
How do you?
What I tell people as far as longevity, and this is not me. This is not my idea. This is not my brainchild. Donnie Thompson, I brought him in, I think it's like 5 years ago now for a clinic. And probably one of the biggest game changers in my strength career was actually not at the clinic with Donnie. He stayed with me for a week, and just talking with him over dinner and just watching TV on my couch, I learned more from Donnie in that 1 week than I had learned probably in my entire strength career. And there were so many just amazing light bulb moments talking to him. But the big one is, you see these guys who are deadlift specialists, and they're deadlifting heavy every single week.
Right.
There is not going to be a long career there.
No.
It is a matter of time before that back says, I'm done, and it's severely injured.
Right.
And his big indicator was, he was like, okay, Instagram, you look on that for the deadlift specialists. I'm like, okay. And so I had a few in mind. He was like, okay. He goes, how many of those guys are still around? I'm like, none of them. He's like, exactly. He goes, think about the ones now. He goes, watch the ones now. Watch how long they last. And, again, that was 5 years ago.
Right.
None of them are left.
Right.
Not one. And Donnie's big thing with me was, he's like, I know you like to deadlift heavy. I know that's your favorite lift. He goes, but instead of doing it, even building through percentages, 75, 85, 90% through a block, he goes, don't do that. And, only deadlift heavy once every, he allowed me to do once every 4 weeks. he did it like once every eight or nine.
Right.
And sure enough, I mean, that's why he had such a long powerlifting career.
Yeah.
And he hit his 3,000 pound total at 46 years old.
Jeez.
So I mean,
Gosh,
it
that's
took
amazing.
46 years to hit that total, and if he was hurt all the time during that, there's no way he would have hit it. So that was a big eye opener for me, and it's funny because the first time I shifted over, I went from a 675 pound deadlift to about 715 within, I think, 5-6 weeks. Just there.
Just because you weren't trying to hit
beat up
heavy
all the time.
every week.
Well, it takes 21 days to shake off a heavy deadlift.
Right.
Your central nervous system gets absolutely annihilated from heavy deads. So if you're doing that shit every week, where are you going? Nowhere.
You can't increase it.
No. And then not only is it raining hell on your central nervous system for that lift, but your central nervous system controls all the lifts. All your lifts are
Right.
going to take a huge toll. So, yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
This is fun.
No
It's
problem,
like great to like learn some new stuff. On our end, we just try to figure out ways that are best suited for the person in front of us.
Yeah.
And it's tough because everyone's a different person,
Mhm.
different shoulder, different knee, whatever it might be,
Goals.
different goals,
Yeah.
different part of their timeline within lifting.
Yeah.
Some we get in that are very new to any sort of sport or zero sport. So
Yeah.
our goal is get them like out of pain and back to function, but then build up some strength from the ground. Like we kind of follow like the, okay, you got to hit the basic 5,
Mhm.
and you should be able to do the basic 5 like this.
Yes.
And they should never get you injured. Functional movements never go away. We use the McGill, the big 3 all the time. We use
Mhm.
stuff from like, gosh, we use stuff from Donnie.
Yeah.
We use stuff from like his bow tie. We use the body tempering
Oh,
stuff
yeah.
that just makes sense.
Absolutely.
But people are like, well, how's it work? I was like, look, it just
works.
It just works.
Yeah.
Like there's science there. It just works. So
it does, and really, you should never be hurt in the gym, ever. If you're getting hurt in the gym, you're doing the wrong things.
look at your program too.
Yeah. Look at your program. You're doing things wrong if you're hurt all the time in the gym. That should never happen.
Right.
If you get hurt in competition, I'm fine with that.
Because that makes sense.
You're redlining, and you're giving it everything your body has.
Yeah.
I get it. You don't want it to happen, and it shouldn't happen, but if it does, I get it. But just don't be hurt in the gym. Don't do dumb things.
How was it they say that is like during training your form should be like pretty much impeccable.
Yeah.
When you hit your RPE 10,
Yeah.
it should look like garbage.
Garbage. I mean, hopefully not, but
It should feel like garbage.
it should
probably.
feel like garbage. That's
a better way to
correct.
put it.
Yeah.
It should look nice, but it's probably going to feel like garbage.
That's correct.
Yeah, and that's the truth. It's hard to get people wrap that around their mind because, like, well, I want to push every day. It's like,
Yeah.
you just can't unless you have like, I don't know, something fresh running through your veins every day. Like
Exactly.
that recovery
that's
part.
Ego thing, not smart.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right?
That's exactly right.
You've heard of like the Whoop band? You've seen that band, that thing that
Oh,
tracks like
yeah.
your strain or your basically. It takes in consideration how good of sleep you got. Your
So it's tracking the heart rate.
yeah. What do they call it? Heart rate variability.
Yeah.
So basically, say like, yeah, you're recovered. Go
Yeah.
crush it today. But if it's like, man, my recovery was like a 6, it's like you were doing like active low recovery.
Yeah.
Like chill out today.
Yep.
If you got 0 sleep, you got bad nutrition, you had like your heart rate's off the charts. Like your central nervous system is already shot. Why try to crush it
Correct.
anymore? Right.
And getting somebody to listen to that is probably the hardest part.
Oh
I
my gosh.
used to throw with a guy who's probably one of the greatest Canadian throwers of all time, Greg Hadley. And he used to wake up every morning, take his heart rate, and if his heart rate was in a certain range, yeah, he would know to really back it down. But if it was really low and not beating like crazy, yeah, he could tear it up.
Right.
So
Right.
and he did that regularly, listened to his body that way, and it worked really well for him. But yeah, getting somebody to not be stubborn and listen that way,
It's hard.
That's the hardest part.
It's hard, yeah.
That as a coach.
Ryan, thank you so much.
Yeah, man.
It was fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
We should do this anyways.
Hey, anytime.
Because I always like learn something new every time. So,
I love doing it, so yeah, anytime, man.
gotcha. Thank you.
Yep.